Mind arises without abiding. Mind arises without abiding. That means without getting stuck or attached. This is a statement from the Diamond Sutra. When the sixth patriarch, mentioned yesterday, was a young man, his father, well, really a young boy, his father passed away. And so he supported his mother by cutting and selling firewood in the town in southern China. He was not educated, as I mentioned yesterday. As the legend, the story goes, when this young man now was going into the town to sell firewood, he happened to hear a monk reciting the Diamond Sutra. And when he came to the part, mind arises without abiding, again, without getting stuck, attached anywhere. Mind arises without abiding. And when this young man knew virtually nothing about Buddhism or Zen or meditation or the sutras, but when he heard that mind arises without abiding, it struck him. He had an insight. He wasn't awakened, but he had an insight. And so he asked the monk, "Where did you get this sutra?" And the monk said, "Oh, up north I practiced with the fifth patriarch, and this is where I learned the Diamond Sutra." So then, as the story goes, this young, uneducated man traveled the far distance to meet with the fifth patriarch. And instead of becoming a monk, he was sent to work in the kitchen area, threshing, taking care of the rice, preparing the rice, kind of a laborer. I told a bit of the story from there with the two poems yesterday. Today, I would like to go back one step to this first glimpse, this first insight, spontaneous, that he had, listening to the monk reciting and hearing these words, mind arises without abiding. What did he see? What did he hear? What did he realize? In a sense, all of the basic Buddhist teaching and Zen practice is right there. Mind arises without abiding. The first point to make clear in your practice is mind arises. Practice is not a matter of deadening the mind, of turning ourselves into zombies, lifeless. No, no. The mind arises. We live in a world with sights and sounds. So the mind naturally responds to that. It arises, yes. That's not the problem. Mind arises without abiding. In other words, It responds, it is alive. The true mind is alive and vital in a way that is impossible for the ordinary ego self to imagine. But it does not abide, stay, get stuck, get attached to anything. This is the point, you see? The problem is not the mind arising, it's when it gets stuck, when it gets attached to something. So please take this expression to heart. In a sense, all you need to know is right there. Mind arises without abiding. I trust you can also see how connected this is with his later expression in response to the head monk who spoke of polishing the mirror. The sixth patriarch, actually the person who was going to become the sixth patriarch, wrote, "From the first, really, there's not one thing. There's not a thing. There's nothing. Nothing at all. Where can the dust alight? Where can the dust abide, get stuck?" You see how intimately connected his original insight is and how it has been, in a sense, deepened and come to fruition now. Right here and now, really, there is not one thing. Clearly, no problem of a mirror or dust. Do you see? What is that really? Not a single thing? Right now, I can hear cars and trucks going along 5th Street here in Kyoto. Aren't they real? Isn't there something called COVID-19? Isn't that why you're sitting socially distanced now? Isn't there pain and pleasure? What is it? Really, there is not one thing. You must make this clear for yourself, huh? It can sound, of course, very negative. There's nothing. Wipe it all away, huh? No, no, no. Remember that first expression, mind arises. Yes. Full and free without abiding. Now in this expression, really, originally, from the first, there's not one thing. What is that really? Very simply, and again, you must confirm this in your own bones. Huh? In other words, everything, including you, me, the world, everything is really inconceivable. It cannot be conceived, turned into an object. To put it more precisely, everything can be turned into an object, but then that's just a shadow. It's not the real thing. So when we conceive of something, illusion, enlightenment, we see something, but in a sense, it's just a shadow of the thing itself. So this very radical, yes, a very radical statement. Really, there is not one thing. In other words, what really is this here and now is beyond conception, inconceivable. It cannot be grasped as an object. It is beyond compare. Each and everything. Thus, again, this negatively expressed, there's not a thing, inside, outside, above, below, before, or after. Not one thing. And that not one thing is what works and freely lives in the world, which is also not one thing. Do you see? Beyond form of any kind, beyond abiding, getting stuck in anything, anywhere. This is reality. This is what really is. Thus, the radical expression, really there is not one thing. And that not one thing freely gives rise to everything without being a thing. Please beware, this can sound from the outside abstract, but I assure you, it is the conceiving, the mental conception that is abstract. That is what is isolated and separated from reality. This is the most concrete thing, if I call it that, possible. There's nothing more immediate and concrete than this, but it cannot be conceived. It cannot be put in a box. It cannot be grasped and turned into something. Again, not because it is something abstract or mystical. No, on the contrary, because it's right here. This is what you must make clear in your own bones. You see how it's necessary to give all of ourselves. How can we not give all of ourselves to this practice? It's tragic to see people practicing Zen, sitting in very good meditation for years, even for decades, but really they're just going around in the same mental circles over and over again. It's tragic. The way through is right under your feet, but you must go all the way through. But it is right here. And it cannot be turned into an object. If you do, you're left with a shadow. Thus, that is why you cannot be fully satisfied with the things of the world or of yourself. It's a reflection. It's a mere shadow. But it's not the fault of the object. The fault is with the self-delusion, that is the delusion of a self, turning things into an object and mistaking this for reality. It does it with itself, it does it with the other, it does it with the world. Thus, we are left connected with the world, but separate. Connected with those we love, but not completely. Knowing ourselves, but still there is a distance, isn't there? It is precisely that separation, that self-delusion that is the delusion of a self, that must be let go. And it's a delusion. It's a delusion. So the sooner you let go of it, the better. Where is that separation? Right now, we're thousands of miles away, and yet we are not separate by one hair's breadth, as we say, not by an inch. How is that possible, huh? Where is the separation between you and me? Is it the screen? No. The further you look for it, the further it recedes. You must inquire all the way, right under your own feet. Who makes the distinction between self and other? Who makes the distinction between illusion over here and enlightenment over here? Please do not waste this precious time in dreams and delusions. Make best use of this time to see what is directly underfoot. This is not someone else's concern. It is what is in the depths of your own heart, under your own feet. Have you ever been in love? I suppose all of you are old enough to have fallen into that. It's interesting, the English expression, we say to fall in love, like to fall asleep, because it's obviously not just a willed thing. You can't will yourself to sleep. If you do, you'll stay up awake all night. You fall asleep as you fall in love. Have you ever really fallen in love? If you have, then you know what Zen is and how it works. When you really fall in love, do you stand on the edge and look? Do you linger at the entrance and just look, or do you dive in? You dive in because the very separation is no longer there. Isn't love precisely that? Love is realizing that the separation is not real. The division, the separation between you and the other is gone. Isn't that precisely what love is? Well, how do you do that? I leave that koan to any one of you who has ever really fallen in love. It's no different here. It's no different here. We can't just linger, stand at the edge and look in, get a little glimpse here and there. No, you must dive in all the way and taste it for yourself. Savor it. Know it from the inside. Isn't that what you really need to do? Well, could you imagine a better situation than you have here and now to do it? The breath itself shows you where you must go, without abiding anywhere. No inside, no outside, no better, no worse, no illusion, no enlightenment. Just the breath, breathing itself. This is a very good entrance, huh? Then if you need something to, so to speak, lock onto, to keep that concentration there, huh? Yes, mind arises without abiding. But as I said yesterday in response to one of the questions, does something remain? In your mind, in your body, in your practice, in the world, does something remain? Here is where the great doubt comes alive, you see. Does something remain? If it doesn't, well then, there is not one single thing. Confirm it in your bones, test it to the very end. But if something does remain, there is where you must apply yourself. This is how a koan can be helpful. This is how the sitting itself is helpful, how the breathing itself is helpful. You see, to keep us in a very good way locked on to what remains. So the mind is not wavering at all, not turning anything into an object, not seeking after anything, not running away from anything, not turning anything into an object, something to desire or something to dislike. No. Letting all be what it really is, not one thing. Making this clear, then seeing what it is to work from there, to bring that not a thing to life. This is the, you might say, second half of the practice. But first, to really make it clear for yourself. Yes, mind arises, as it should, without abiding anywhere. If it does abide, get stuck somewhere, see it clearly. What is that? What remains? There is where you must apply yourself until it is clear, not only not a single thing, but the importance of the head monk statement to constantly, continually polish that mirror until there is no dust on the mirror, until the mirror itself is gone without a trace. Then you can see the one mirrors the other. For the head monk, constantly polishing the mirror is none other than, really, there is not one thing. I urge you, do not endlessly go around in the same old mental circles and delusions. This is where the practice must be sustained. The samadhi, the concentrated oneness, must continue on through all the activities of the day, not just on the cushion. And then it's just a matter of time. When it matures, it becomes manifest. the most obvious thing in the world. There cannot be a shadow of a doubt. And then to work from there. Again, I would like to leave time for questions from out of the practice. For the benefit of all, please try to make your question as precise, exact, and brief as possible. What exactly is your question? A clear question allows for a clear answer. So please, for the benefit of everyone, please feel free to speak up if you have a question from out of the practice. Thank you for listening so intently. It's a joy to practice together.
Good afternoon.
Good morning for you, huh?
Jeff, I have a question to the meditation posture. If I am sitting, I held my left hand overwhelming the right hand. So the right hand is under the left hand, right?
Yeah.
And the thumbs are coming close together without pressure, okay?
Yeah.
So sitting a while, it happens to me very often, almost every time, that my hands become very, how to explain, they feel like they would be thick. They feel like all the blood of my body is collecting only in the hands, and they are heavy, and it's not really pain, but it's something similar to pain. It's at least not comfortable.
Yeah.
So perhaps you can comment this thing.
So in Zen, the right hand, as you said, and then on top, the left hand, the fingers, and then it depends on where your feet are that you would rest, but in full lotus, it works very well, huh? Because here's the navel. So the thumbs are about where the belly button or the navel is, huh? And then gently touching, not pressing, but gently touching each other, huh?
Right.
Okay, this is actually a mudra, huh? If, as you say, the energy is draining down into the hands, allow all of your energy, allow everything, let the whole world sit in your hands and see what happens. You understand? Let everything just come and settle in the palms of your hand. If that doesn't help, when you sit, make sure that you're relaxed. Your shoulders are okay, not tight. If they get tight, that tends to affect the hands. Huh? And see that your energy is flowing properly. Again, the breath is very helpful here. Huh? One of the reasons we have our hands like this is because this is where we're breathing from, right? We're not just breathing from the chest. Huh? We're actually using these muscles here below the navel in our breath. So by putting our hands here, you can feel it. At the end of the out breath, it expands here. It doesn't go in or get tight. It actually expands, so you can feel it gently going into your thumb and your little fingers here. So with the proper breath, I don't think it should be a problem. But if it remains, let everything just gather naturally there. And if it still is a problem, check your posture, make sure that you're not tightening up. I wouldn't worry about it too much. In Theravada Buddhism, the hands are the opposite. The left hand is on the bottom. So don't worry too much about these technical things, okay? There are different schools of Buddhism with different mudras and everything, okay? Let me know in a few days, maybe tomorrow in the one-on-one we can check on this, okay?
If there is really no thing, I don't know if I really understand it. What's about if I'm engaging for something, for instance, for the climate or for refugees also? Should we do it, or I think
absolutely, you should do it, but you should do it from not one thing. If you do it from something or other, you know where that goes, don't you, Barbara? Huh? Sometimes it creates as many problems as it solves. So without being one thing, this is where true love, compassion comes from. It's also where true creativity comes from. Not being a thing, giving rise to everything. Yes, you're right, Barbara. We need to respond to the world, but you shouldn't be preoccupied with that now on the second day of a retreat. Be very concerned with that next week when you leave the retreat. But right now, make it clear for yourself in your own bones. What is it to be without a thing, not one thing? And then, yes. What is it to work from there? There's where we can really work. Not an opposing position, you see? Not me fighting against something else that I feel is wrong. You know where that leads, don't you, huh? So absolutely, Barbara. I'm not saying forget the environment. It's nothing. No, it's everything. It's everything. But you can only really be one with the environment if you are nothing at all. You must let go of your conceptions, of your own attachments, of your own desires, in order to truly be of service to others. Do you see, Barbara? If it's not clear, please don't hesitate to raise this question again at the end of the retreat. A very good time for that. Okay?
Hi, Jeff.
Hello,
Not a thing. Is it beyond all things, or is it a collection of all things, or is it better not to search for an expression?
Well, the expressions can naturally come later. Huh? Let it come out of the experience itself. The way that it is often described in Zen is being not one thing, I am everything. Yes, it's an absolute paradox. It's also reality. Reality is that way. Another way to put it is being nothing whatsoever. I am the world, and the world is me. Does this make sense to you, Werner? I think it does.
Yeah.
But don't worry about the understanding. Let the understanding come from out of the experience itself. Let the expression, the words come from out of the experience itself.
Yeah, that was the question. But to wait, that's the point, you know.
Patience is
That
a
it,
virtue.
yeah.
You don't have far to go, Werner.
Hi, Jeff. Can you fall into awakening? Like you said, you compared it with falling in love.
Mm.
Do you fall into awakening?
It's an interesting way of putting it. You certainly don't force your way into awakening. I would say awakening is precisely where that distinction falls away. There are people who awakened stubbing their toe. There are people who awakened hearing a bell ring. There are people who awakened getting hit by their teacher. It can happen at any time. But to use your word, to fall, it has to happen when the ego self pushing and trying, when that comes to its own end. That in itself is not enough. Once it comes to its own end, yes, it falls in on itself in a way. Rather than exploding, maybe it implodes on itself. Yes. It no longer needs to sustain or support itself, to abide anywhere as anything. The very insecurity that keeps the ego self together dissolves. And we find we don't need to be anyone. It's precisely that weakness, that insecurity, that need to come back to some shell, to some self-identity, that can be let go. That's what needs to fall, because it's not real. What if you don't have a self to come back to? Is that scary, or is that final release?
Okay, so you're saying keep on polishing the mirror and don't worry about awakening.
That's a good way to put it. Yes, that's much better than the way I put it. Yes. For now, forget awakening and just give yourself to the moment to moment practice. Yes. 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 You're right where you need to be.
When I'm sitting, I'm feeling, for example, I'm feeling my shoulder, and it is important to come in contact with the reality itself, but not with the concept. But there are always both of them. If I focus on the breath, I have the breath itself and the concept of the breath, they are both present at the same time, and how is there really, are there criteria where I can see now I'm stuck with a concept and have lost the contact? So is there?
Do you need a concept of the breath to breathe?
No.
Of course not. So throw it out. Why are you dwelling? Why are you abiding in the concept? You think it helps you to breathe?
No, but when I focus on the breath, it's so easy to get stuck in concepts of the breath. How to let this concept go? Are there ways to check it faster to be structuring a concept?
Mikhail?
Yes.
Breathe.
Okay.
Use your whole body and mind and just breathe. Give yourself to the breath. If your mind rises up in conceptions, well, see it, and then return. The breath is always there. The concepts come and go, don't they? So you know you don't have to abide in them. Whether you conceive of a thought or not, you're still breathing. Come back to that. Is that so hard?
It's the whole polishing things consistent.
It can seem difficult, I know, but be patient and give yourself to it. And if you keep going into concepts, see what your mind is doing and correct it. It's your mind, Michael's, nobody else's. If you don't discipline, if you don't polish it, there's nothing anybody can do.
Okay,
see what you are doing, and know that the breath is always there. It's always there. Simply return to it. You don't need a concept to do that.
Okay.
My question is, can you say a bit more about pain? Because when I sit, pain comes always. Sometimes I'm just fighting with it and I can't go through. Sometimes it's impossible for me to be aware of it, and yeah, maybe that's the word. I can go through by being aware, not falling away, and then it's beautiful. But the part where it just hurts and I fight it, both. Can you just say a bit more about pain? Because I see it as such an important thing when I sit. It just because it's there, and it brings a lot to me also.
It's a very common problem. I struggled with intense pain for years. I thought I would never get over it. But by sitting properly, you can see for yourself. Pain is not really a problem. Pain is your body telling you something is wrong. Listen to it, respect it. Don't be a slave to it, but listen to it and respect it. See if you need to adjust your posture. You shouldn't move during Zazen, but from one period to the next, try a different cushion. Sometimes just adjusting the height of the cushion a little bit can help a lot. But you have to find out with your own body what works. A chair, okay. A seiza bench to sit in, another cushion. Find out what your body needs to sit properly. And then, if there's pain, be aware of it, welcome it, listen to it, but don't be a slave to it. You understand? By trying to push it away, it usually just makes it worse. Okay, but let it come, see what it is saying. What is it saying? Do you need to adjust your posture? Okay. Or is it something that's going on, for example, you're in your head worrying about something. So what happens? Your body tightens up and it starts to hurt. See what is actually going on in your body and mind when the pain arises. And usually you can find a way. But when it's there, that is the experience of the moment. Savor it. What is it saying? What is it really saying? And I trust you will see in time. Pain is a problem, but it's not really. It can't really disturb your practice. The real problem is you say, and then after a while, sometimes it's beautiful. Do you abide in that?
I know that also.
Hmm?
I know that also, at least when I'm thinking of, oh wow, there it is now, I can experience myself again and stuff like that.
Experience it, but don't turn that into something either. Just let it be what it is. Let it be what it is. Again, as I said yesterday, we're not here to torture ourselves, but we're not here to make it as comfortable as possible either, because then you'll probably just fall asleep. So we sit like this for a very good reason. Not to cause pain, but this is the best posture for what we are doing, giving all of ourselves to the practice. So we put our hands, as explained earlier, in a certain way, because we're not scratching every itch that we have. We put our hands in a way that supports the practice. We put our legs in a way that supports the practice, opens the hip, so that you can breathe properly. We have our eyes lowered, but not closed, because this is the best way. This is what supports the practice. So make sure that your body is correct. There are very experienced people here that can help you if you need, okay? And then just sit through. Please, I don't mean willpower, being stronger than the pain. It doesn't work. When I say sit through, I mean just sit through the self until it's clear. There's not one thing to get hung up on, to get attached to. Pleasure, pain. Okay. I look forward to hearing how it goes tomorrow. Anything else?
No, right now. Thank you.
I have a question concerning the mirror and the polishing. I've told you all of this already a lot of times, this feeling of unease or dis-ease. And so I understand polishing the mind and the things that arise, but sometimes this feeling of dis-ease or unease arises, but in a seemingly different way, like not on the surface of a mirror, but like separate from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like saying, I'm not something, like if I talk to it, like not saying that I'm not here to polish, you can't polish me, I'm here. You can polish other things, but not me. I'm here and I'll stay. So luckily it goes away sometimes, so I know it's not stable, completely stable. But yeah, I'm still, if it's there, I'm still struggling with the identification I have with it. Yeah, and because it's so strong and it says I don't want to be polished.
I would simply say polish until there is nothing left to polish. If you're really doing that, there's no room to be having a discussion or an argument with yourself, is there? Who is doing the polishing, Bernhard?
Well, there's no one specific doing the polishing.
And where does this voice come from?
Well, it says that it comes from deep inside of me.
Take a look. Take a look, huh? That can also be a part of the polishing. Open up. Where's that coming from? Maybe you can put a rag in its hand and let it polish for a while. We can go into this more tomorrow if you would like, okay?
Okay.
Thank you all, especially those who had the courage to ask questions. Again, this is for the benefit of everyone. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Please continue on giving yourself to this marvelous practice.